The old cabin had stood quietly at the edge of the forest for decades, untouched by rules or HOA regulations. But the moment the protagonist drove up the gravel path, Karen appeared at the boundary, arms crossed and face red with rage, shouting, "You're on my land! Get off now!" The battle had begun. The cabin wasn't fancy, just wood and stone tucked into a pine-covered clearing. To the protagonist, it was a sanctuary, a place to escape the chaos of city life. Every corner carried memories: childhood trips, summer evenings reading by the fireplace, quiet mornings sipping coffee on the porch. It represented freedom, untouched by rules. The nearby town was neat and orderly, with lawns trimmed to perfection and fences marking invisible lines of authority. Most neighbors were friendly, but one corner of the community was under Karen's strict control. She enforced HOA rules with such zeal that everyone felt uneasy. To Karen, any deviation from her perfect neighborhood was a personal affront. The protagonist parked the truck, inhaling the crisp forest air, unaware that Karen's sharp eyes had already spotted them. Her instinct to control and confront was immediate. This cabin was outside the HOA jurisdiction, but Karen didn't see boundaries. She saw opportunity. The protagonist was independent, calm, and used to solitude. They thrived in quiet spaces, drawing energy from nature and the freedom the cabin provided. Every creak of the floorboards, every sunlit patch on the porch reminded them that some places didn't need rules to feel right. Karen, by contrast, was obsessive and entitled. She patrolled her HOA with meticulous attention, identifying minor infractions and exaggerating them for maximum effect. Her authority wasn't just about property. It was about control, ensuring everyone knew her power. She wasn't cruel, but anyone stepping outside the boundaries of her worldview was automatically a threat. From the first glance, the difference between them was stark, one embracing independence, the other enforcing order. Karen noticed the protagonist immediately, her brows knitting together as if their mere presence challenged her. The first sparks of conflict were inevitable. Karen didn't wait. She appeared at the gravel path, arms crossed, voice sharp. "You can't be here!" she shouted. "This is private property." "You need to leave!" The protagonist remained calm. "I own this cabin. It's outside your HOA. I'm not on anyone's land but my own." Karen's face flushed. "That doesn't matter. You can't just park here and live like it's yours. Move now!" The shouting echoed through the trees, startling birds into flight. The protagonist's patience was tested, but they stayed steady, their calm contrasting Karen's fury. Curious neighbors peeked over fences, watching the confrontation unfold. The power struggle was tense. Karen's outrage versus the protagonist's quiet confidence. Karen's certainty began to waver, though she hid it behind louder shouts. Her anger simmered, signaling that this was only the beginning of a drawn-out battle. Over the following days, Karen's campaign intensified. She sent letters to the HOA claiming violations, knocked on neighbors' doors, spreading rumors, and tried to impose imaginary rules on the property. The protagonist faced questions from authorities, passive-aggressive neighbors, and even minor vandalism, like a rock thrown at the mailbox. Despite the pressure, the protagonist stayed composed. They documented every interaction, kept property deeds handy, and remained polite but firm. Slowly, some neighbors began to see the truth. The cabin was legally outside the HOA, and Karen's claims had no basis. Still, the emotional toll was real. Every morning brought the anxiety of potential confrontation. Every car on the gravel path could be Karen, ready to yell. The protagonist often sat on the porch, taking deep breaths, reminding themselves why they were there. Freedom, solitude, and the right to call this cabin home. Viewers could feel the tension growing, rooting for the protagonist while anticipating Karen's next move. The stakes were emotional, nostalgia, independence, and the personal peace of owning a space versus the overbearing demands of someone obsessed with control. The showdown occurred on a crisp morning. Karen arrived with the HOA president and a stack of papers, voice shaking with rage. "You cannot be here. You are violating our rules." The protagonist stood firm. "I have the deed. This cabin is mine. Outside your HOA. I am not violating anything. Silence fell, punctuated by the rustling of pine needles. Karen waved her papers, attempting to assert authority, but the protagonist's calm, evidence-backed response drew attention. Neighbors watched, sensing the shift. Karen's power, once absolute in this area, was crumbling. Her final scream rang out, but it had lost potency. The protagonist didn't raise their voice or retaliate. They simply repeated facts with quiet confidence. The tension reached its peak. The audience experiences the ultimate emotional catharsis. The entitled antagonist is powerless, and the underdog holds firm. Karen retreated, muttering complaints under her breath. Authorities in the HOA confirmed the cabin's status, fully owned by the protagonist, outside any HOA jurisdiction. Peace returned. The cabin felt like home again, now with the added satisfaction of victory. The protagonist could enjoy mornings on the porch without fear, soaking in the forest's tranquility. Even some neighbors who initially sided with Karen offered apologies. The protagonist realized the ordeal wasn't just about the cabin, it was about patience, composure, and standing one's ground. The struggle had been emotional, but they emerged stronger. Sitting on the porch with a warm cup of coffee, the protagonist watched sunlight filter through the pines. Freedom wasn't given, it was claimed. Courage, patience, and clarity had turned a tense conflict into personal victory. Karen disappeared behind her gate, fuming but defeated. The cabin remained a sanctuary, a symbol of independence, resilience, and the quiet strength of standing firm. Nature seemed to approve, as if acknowledging the underdog's triumph. The forest, the cabin, and the solitude had endured, and so had the protagonist, a reminder that peace is worth defending.